So hello and welcome to my show, The Awakening, here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. The information and opinions expressed on this show are just that, the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual personal experience. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. My name's Tina Huggins, your divorce coach specialist, divorce consultant, restorative family mediator, co-parenting professional. And joining me today is our Chief Peacekeeper. And the name of the show is the Chief Peacekeeper's Advice. And we're going to talk to Scott Levin today. And so before I introduce Scott, I want to tell you a little bit more about him. Scott is the founder of Chief Peacekeeper. That's just going to be a tongue twister for me today. Chief Peacekeeper at San Diego Divorce Mediation and Family Law. Scott has 20 years of experience in family law and mediation. Scott has helped countless couples navigate amicable divorce, avoiding costly court battles. What makes Scott stand out is the fact that he is a certified financial analyst and he's a magna cum laude graduate of the University of Virginia School of Law. Scott combines legal expertise with financial insight to guide couples toward fair and efficient resolutions. After just kind of roll over this. Another very exciting thing about Scott is that he has been recognized as the top attorney by San Diego Metro Magazine and Super Lawyers. Scott also shares his knowledge as a law school instructor, teaches courses on family law and mediation. So Scott, I don't know that you know this about me, but I'm a martial artist. And after reading all of that and getting ready for the show today, I feel like I should just call you Mr. Levine out of the respect level of how intelligent you are coming into this aspect with. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Real quick, I was magna cum laude from NYU undergrad. Law school, I was very average. So I just want to clarify in case of any of my old law school classmates are listening, they know I was beyond average. So just to clarify.
Oh, average. Yes, average. Okay. So
but thank
I know
you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's like I was going through and I was prepping the notes and stuff for today, and it's like, wow. Just all of the information and the knowledge that you're coming in, because not only did you have to study law for all those years, you also have studied financial background. So we're going to get into some of that as we go through. You've sent me a couple of questions, and so I'm just going to kind of start and we'll just kind of roll from there, if that's okay.
Perfect. Sounds good.
So I know that you've helped many couples avoid the courtroom and settle their divorces amicably. So what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about divorce mediation process?
I think that what comes to mind, because I sent you that question like 3 weeks ago, so I didn't even remember, but what comes to mind is I think a lot of people think that divorce mediation is for people that already agree. And they're for the cases where people don't have assets, they don't have kids, and they just want to kind of go their separate ways. And I have a lot of clients each year, each month, where they're not in agreement at all, and they have complex, unique issues that are challenging, that would be challenging to figure out in court, and are challenging to figure out in mediation. But mediation is not reserved just for the cases that are easy and that don't have a lot going on. I think that's the biggest misconception. You can figure out, and I have a lot of people that could tell you this that have worked with me, and obviously I'm not the only one. There's lots of good mediators. You can figure out of court solutions as long as you are committed and wanting that end objective. If you want that for you and your spouse, you can figure everything out. It's just a matter of maintaining that desire throughout the process, because things certainly can get sticky.
Yeah, so I'm a trained mediator myself, and most of my work is done in the divorce coaching aspect. But I know that I work with my clients to and kind of have to explain just what you just did to them so that they can understand that we don't want to go into the courtroom. Going into the courtroom is very pricey on the clients, and it's pricey on, if they have children, what's going to be left in that pot when it gets back to these children to take care of those kids in the final. So you're very right on the fact that just because it's not an amicable start to the divorce doesn't mean that they can't come to some resolution in there and come together. So I agree with that.
And looking at it from the other perspective too, Tina, like, so the default and like, I think Hollywood and kind of general media teaches us that when you're going through a divorce, you get an attorney, which of course there's nothing wrong with that, right? But if you look at it from the other perspective, you're not fighting, you're not hardcore, you're somewhat, amicable, or there's no huge drama or trauma between you and your spouse. So you each hire your own attorneys. How many of those cases get turned into something that neither party ever wanted or expected? Because, family law attorneys can at times make, little problems into bigger problems. So you open yourself up to like, hey, let's just each hire an attorney and we'll just file and then we'll kind of go from there. All of a sudden the attorneys are doing things where you're not really sure, you didn't like understand what they're doing. Whatever they did is triggering your spouse. Now they're getting defensive, they're fighting back. And it can kind of spiral really quickly. So I mean, it's just kind of it's a two-way street.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and in many cases, when I'm working with, because I work in the high conflict arena, so it's already coming in where they're already arguing, and so hopefully I come into the process early on and can help. But for me, when I get ready to hand them off to an attorney or give them a list of attorneys that are going to be best for their situation, I have to explain to them that attorneys can do just what you just said. They can take, and I have watched this personally. I was doing paper investigation for an attorney, and this attorney would have this one client. He would come in, and this attorney would have his staff cancel all the rest of the meetings for the day that weren't court related, and he would sit down with this client for hours. Really? Because he knew this client had the ability to pay for that. This client didn't need to talk to him any longer than 20 minutes, but that client or that attorney just felt that he needed to give, that's what he felt be a good attorney he needed to be for this specific person. And then the conflict would start in the middle, and it would just raise the cost of that bill. And I would watch it every time that client came in.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure, Tina, you understand, like high conflict cases, a lot of cases that end up going the attorney route. I'm not judging those people. Look, I've had high conflict cases. They're very difficult. I've litigated high conflict cases in my past life. I mean, these things, there's a lot going on, right? So I'm not, if you're going through a divorce and your attorney led, it's in like an attorney driven process, you're not, I hope you don't take that, what I'm saying is like a judgment on you, because that's not the case.
Oh, no.
I just think that, 80% of the cases from the start are not that. That's more of the, I think 25%, maybe even less percent of those cases of the general cases are veer towards that degree of high conflict. So the rest of them, I think, have a good chance of, being solved.
Yes. And so most of my clients will need to go with a litigative attorney because of the situation. And I have to explain to them that although a litigation attorney might cost more in their situation, if we work with the attorney properly, we can keep the cost down for them. But my whole thing is to get them to a mediator, because if we can mediate out, and I tell them there's 10 things that you've got to mediate. If you can work through at least 4 of those things, that's 4 things you don't have to pay for your attorney to go to court with.
You're right. That's totally correct. If you just knock off some of the things, that just, that reduces your cost and the time, and you're limiting the number of issues that the attorneys will have to deal with, which is to everyone's best interest. I just finished a really high conflict case. They were in litigation for about 3 years before basically they just drained it. They just didn't have any more money. So they found me because I'm cheap.
Cheaper than,
You know,
than the
it was
lawyers.
a
Yeah.
reminder. It was a reminder of like the old days of representing like really high conflict cases. I mean, I hadn't had a case. I mean, just because they had burned through all their money and they didn't have any, didn't mean that they had burned through the energy and the you know the fight.
Right.
But we figured it out. I was pretty iffy at points that we weren't going to, but we got it solved. And actually, what they just left me a nice Yelp review recently. But
Awesome.
these can be very hard cases, and things often, you know, true high conflict can't be resolved in mediation.
Yeah.
Not
And
that it can't, but they often won't be.
yeah, it's tough. But like I said, if they can take 4 out of that 10, then they only have 6 they have to go in front of the judge with, which saves them money there and time. The amount of time, like one of my, well, it's my husband, actually, my late husband. He had a situation with his attorney where he ended up paying $300,000. And from the start of that to the finish of that, permanent orders was 7 years. And
Oh,
the problem with that situation was that he himself didn't have the right attorney. He needed to have a different attorney because he didn't have a litigation attorney. And I didn't come into that until the very end of that. So it was a bad situation, and it just got amplified again by attorney thinking they could fight with the other attorney, and so they would have fights back and forth through emails for months.
I know.
I got to read through all of the transcripts.
I just finished a prenup with an attorney today, and we did a prenup against each other like 3 months ago. And, you know, we're kind of friends actually, but that last case got a little sticky. And we brought all of that negative energy into the newer one. I mean, it didn't really affect anything, but like the email, the tone, it was all a little bit harsh, all a little bit negative. And you know, attorneys have a hard time not bringing in that past interaction with the other counsel to the case that really has nothing to do with the two people, right?
Right, right. And we talk about that energy, and that's what I tell my clients. I'm like, when you already are angry with all that emotion, you have all that negative emotion, it's just going to heat things up, and it's just going to keep the fire burning. That's what I do, is I help alleviate some of that. They talk to me, we take that off the top. Sometimes I will send emails, or, you know, fix emails, take all the emotion out for them so that they can send it to their attorney or send it to their spouse, or just so that they don't end up on your desk throwing up all of their negative stuff.
Exactly. I mean, that case I just mentioned with the high conflict case, I was friends with the wife's former counsel, and the wife made less than $40,000 annually in income, and the attorney bills were $170,000. And I called my friend, or you know, my colleague, and I said, I mean, I'm not judging. I just there's a bill for 170K, and this person makes you know, 15% of that amount per year. How do we justify that? And, you know, her point was, and I experienced it as this case went on. I mean, when we had our meetings, it took like 45 minutes of burning off that energy about all the stuff that had been happening. And she was firing off emails and calling the attorney. And so I get it, like the attorney kind of has to bill, but I mean, it's just not productive. You're much better off going with letting Tina help you burn that energy and focus the legal process on resolution if you can.
Yeah, yeah. And so I take care of that. I find a mediator for them to go to. And in your case, you definitely have a lot going for you. So one of the things that I feel is a major plus in you, and I definitely would send any of my affluent clients to you, because you are a certified divorce financial analyst. That means you understand the money. So
Yeah.
you bring that unique perspective to dividing the assets. So what's your advice that you would give couples who feel that they're overwhelmed by their financial complexities during the divorce?
Yeah, I have a finance background. I'm kind of a math brain. Uh, so that's kind of like my background. I've run some companies, and I was in, undergrad for finance. So, numbers come easy. What I would say is that you got to get things, the faster that you can get the information downloaded and understood, the faster you're going to feel less overwhelmed. So the first mediation session in an ideal world that with my clients, and not every case is like this, right? It kind of depends on the parties, but I spend a meeting with them, inputting all of their assets and debts and incomes into a software program so that we get it all out there together, and they
Uh-huh.
each other questions. What about that 60,000 that was there, or that was my, we kind of deal with those questions as we're putting it in. But then at the end of that meeting, we can then see everything that they have on in one space. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen just the kind of the overwhelmed sensation just kind of dissipate a little bit once that's done. So until you have a sense for, what the assets are, on which, how much each of you have in both of your individual names and in your community, you're just not gonna you're gonna feel overwhelmed and scared. So you got to get the information put in a program or in a way where you can understand what it's showing, and that will just make you feel a lot better, a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And because I am not a numbers person, I always make sure that my people have somebody that understands the numbers. So in the case with getting ready to go through mediation, if they could go to you, they wouldn't necessarily need to hire all of the extra people on the outside, because as the mediator and a divorce financial analyst, they're getting two in one with that. And so they're getting to save a huge amount of money by going to you.
Yeah, I mean, it comes up all the time. I'm not bragging, by the way. There's lots of people that do what I do, but I mean, just for instance, yesterday someone was kind of conflating. In California, you get a $250,000 exemption when you sell a house while you're married. Each person does, so that's total of 500. And they
Wow.
were saying, because I'm giving my spouse the house, I want $250,000 because I won't be able to claim that. And I said, well, no, you're not getting, it's not a $250,000 value. It's 200 up to 250,000 on the gain. And based on the fair market value of your house and what you bought it for, your total possible gain is like less than 100,000. So like, I mean, I know it's kind of complicated what I said, but basically people can kind of misunderstand numbers pretty easily. And it's important to just kind of be able to speak that language, but in a way also that where I can explain it kind of plainly for everyone to understand.
Yes. No, I worked with Vesta for a while. I really loved that organization. And one of the reasons that I really liked it is they had an actual training where they did just for the financial analyst. And I would always go to that training because what I would learn inside there gave me a better understanding of who I needed to send to them and when I needed to send them to them. So
Totally.
and just being able to send my clients to you because they're already going to go through mediation and they're affluent, they've got all of this money sitting in all kinds of pots, being able to understand the very best way to separate those pots and what a quadro is and how it works is much better. And like I'm going to reiterate this again, it's way cheaper for them to come to you for their mediation than it would be for them to hire a financial analyst, go to a mediator, have their attorney, and have all of that when they can just have all of you.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that it's about efficiency too. Like when people, I have a case right now where they before they hired me, they had a CDFA, and we're just kind of stalled waiting for that person to produce a report that I don't even understand what we're really waiting on. But they have a lot going on. They're very busy, which is awesome. But like if we had done that in-house, we would have, probably had the whole case wrapped up a month ago, because that now we're kind of held hostage by this other professional's kind of timeline, and I'm can't put, pressure on them. I don't know them. So yeah, it's you know, the numbers are really they're not as complicated most of the time as people think, but it's also really important to understand that there are different that finances aren't just about the dollar value. So, $200,000 in cash is different than $200,000 in a 401k, which is different than $200,000 in a Roth IRA, which is different than, stocks that are taxable with big gains. So, I mean, these things they can be a little bit intricate. You just want to work with someone that understands and can explain, the differences and how it all works.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I learned early on is the separation from a 401k to a Roth IRA and how that affects the people. And I know, and I'm sure that you have this experience too, that usually in the couple, one of them has no knowledge and doesn't know numbers and how anything works, where the other one knows quite a bit about it, maybe not enough, but a lot more, and it causes a stress in that way too, because a person that doesn't know is feeling like they're going to get screwed.
And in that situation, I actually, Tina, I might bring in like an independent CDFA, and I'll tell you why. So I don't want to be, as a mediator, I don't want to be coddling someone where like the other person feels like, well, why are you always like kind of like taking that like that? I could see how that could be easily perceived as being on like team other person, like, oh, well, let me explain this or this, and then I kind of am start to defend one person or not. So like if someone needs like to be empowered by like understanding, and they feel like the other person knows a lot more and they're defensive about that, I might actually suggest that they bring in like their own advisor in that way, to avoid, the thing that kills a mediation is when one person thinks I'm on the other person's team. And once that thought creeps in, it's almost impossible for me to get it to creep out.
Yeah. And that's important for the viewers to understand that you don't take sides. You are in the middle. You are there to help them come to an agreement, and you're not leaning to one side versus the other.
Totally true. And when I say something, both people know that I'm saying it because that's what I think or that's what I need to say, and I need to get the information out there. But I just have to be like totally, when I tell people, when you hire me, you don't get robot Scott. I'm you have to allow me to be myself and to say things and just know that when that happens, I'm giving it to you straight. I'm a straight shooter.
Yeah, well, and that's how come you are recognized by the magazines, because you are who you are, because Scott, not just because you're a mediator or because you're a CDA, because you're Scott. That's what makes you original and core.
Some would say that when they called me and said I won the awards, do you want to do an ad? That's why I won. But yes, no, I think it's always fun to be recognized.
Oh yeah, well, and getting recognized, it's just a part that it's something that brings you up to the top, so people notice you too. So you've got to stand out, otherwise people don't know that you exist. And in your case, I am glad that you do stand out, because we've been talking about the fact that you're a mediator and a CDFA, but you're also a lawyer, so the legal side of that too. And it's very rare that you can have a mediator that's both a lawyer and a CDFA. So I find that to be bravo there as well.
Yeah, it's been a fun run. I actually started teaching law school about 2 years ago as well. So I teach community property in a San Diego based law school. So that's actually really, to be honest with you, I really had to sharpen my like kind of legal expertise, because I would go to these classes and the kids would be reading these cases like they were, studying them for like 50 hours. And I would like glance at them because I've looked at them a million times, and they'd be like, what about this? What about that? I was like, holy crap, I really need to read and be prepared. So that's been helpful to kind of provide additional insight when clients need that.
Yeah, I volunteered a mentor at my divorce coaching school, and I love it because it keeps me sharp, because sometimes we are not lawyers, so we can't give advice. So I always have to remind my clients, that's a question for your lawyer, it's a question for your lawyer. But times where we, as and I watch my students do this, where we just head off into this telling them how to do things. It's like, we can't tell them what to do. We have to coach them through that so that they can find their own answers, where you can tell them what they should legally do. So I just having you as a mediator, I mean, they get to kill three birds with one stone, one bill.
You actually play such an important role though too. So, right, like anytime a person has a lawyer that they're not exactly sure about, and let's say they go and just talk to another lawyer just to get their perspective, the second lawyer always is bad mouthing the first, right? And so you don't know if it's genuine because they're money motivated. Like you don't know, do they really should have that opinion that the first lawyer is screwing it up, or do they even really know all the details to make that opinion? But you have the experience and the ear of the client, so that when you're seeing something that doesn't quite jive, you're able to really like say, hey, I'm not money motivated. I can't represent you if we get rid of lawyer A, but I am concerned that they're giving you potentially kind of steering you in the wrong direction because A, B, and C, and
Yeah.
maybe we should get a second opinion. And they have someone like you to help them make those evaluations. It's so important.
Yes, I had a client just this week that came to me and says, my lawyer's not doing a good job. And I always hate to hear that, because most of the time it's really not true. It just has to do with what's going on, usually in communication from the client to the attorney. And so in this case, they were really upset because they had sent all these emails and hadn't heard back, and on and on. They needed to have this answer. And I'm like, well, let's hold on a minute. One, the flu is going around, and two, we just had the holidays. And I can tell you, I work with professionals that help attorneys go through their stressful times and help take the stress off their plate, right? So I explained that during this time, they not only have their normal stresses from work, but now they have family stresses from the holidays. And you probably don't want them to answer that right in the middle of all that. So give them a few more days. And I said, send, now the email's down on the list, send them one that says second request. And I said, this time CC me in it. Sometimes that helps them to see, oh, yes, I screwed up. Now I've got to pick up the dirty dishes.
I mean, how many, like, would you say how long do you think, like an email is sent by a client on a Monday at 10 a.m. When do you think that it's inappropriate for the lawyer not to have responded? Is there such a timeline?
It depends on the situation. And if I've worked with the attorney, I can kind of gauge how long it's going to be for each of those attorneys. I usually say in generic, if you don't hear by Friday, then next Monday, send another request, and always put it in capital letters, second request, because sometimes they just lose it in their email.
Totally.
It's not the attorney's fault, always.
Email. Oh my God, it's never ending. Yeah, that's one of the great things about, mediation. My practice is so much less burdened by email, but still, like last night I was going through emails and I was like, oh yeah, I gotta get back to this one. But when I was towards the end of my litigation career, I would look back, there'd be thousands of emails in a case between me and the other attorney. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah. And that's only continue. People don't, younger attorneys do not have the ability, or they don't have that experience in direct discussions, right? I mean, it's all email based. It's just such a wasted effort.
Yes. And then, and I try to explain to my clients, these are questions you need to ask for your attorney, but let's wait. Let's get a couple more of those questions, wait till the end of this week and get a couple more of those questions together. So we send one email. I said, you start sending a ton of emails again, it just piles up in their email list. And so I do my best to help the attorney by keeping their stress down from my client. I can't help with all the rest of their clients, but I can with mine.
That's a great point. And also, I'll just say, every attorney's different, right? So some people are motivated by negativity, but a lot of attorneys, if you're to start turning on them, they'll turn on you too. Like they will get their feelings hurt and they'll say, okay, well, you think I'm going to try harder for you because now you're telling me that you're unhappy and then you're writing these
Exactly.
700-word emails about what I haven't done right. I mean, that's now you're starting on the wrong path.
And that happens so often. I'll get clients that come to me because they're frustrated with their attorney. Now I'm coming in the middle of their divorce and they're so mad at their attorney. And I'm like, well, send me some of the emails. And I'm like, oh, this is a point of communication. So I help them clean up their next email or two, and then they come back to me. This has happened almost 100% of the time. They come back to me and they're saying like, wow, my lawyer's really doing a much better job now. It's like
That.
you can't punish a dog without the dog thinking it's always in trouble. So praise the dog, or at least be kind to the dog, and the dog's going to respond better to you.
Totally. I tell people that are working with me or in the consult, sometimes I'll say, you know, without sounding rude, my goal is I want to see you as few times as possible, and then never again once we have settlement. And to be honest with you, you should want to see someone like me as little as possible, and then never again. Never again, meaning that, like, you know, we've put together a settlement that allows you to change with the times and it sustains itself. But I don't want to rush people through the process, but my average case is about, you know, 2.5 to 3 months. So we're meeting every 10 or, you know, 7, 10, 14 days. We're sticking with those meetings and we're keeping the momentum going. So it's a very short, I mean, it's kind of a truncated period of time, but it's more of an intense period of time. So I want to work with people. I want to give them the time. I want to meet, keep at it. Let's explore ideas. Let's do our homework. Let's come back. But I'm not looking for cases where, you know, we're working on things for 12 or 16 months because we're meeting once every 7 weeks or something. That's a failed mediation setup process, in my opinion.
Yes, and I agree with that. And I love the way that you talk about meeting. I have mediators that just aren't organized about that kind of stuff. So I have to help some of the mediators get organized because their caseload is just so full. So I will have my clients request these dates, these specific dates and these specific times. And in those cases, depending on the mediator, we'll go 2 hours to 4 hours. I try not to have my clients go any longer than 2 to 4 hours because it's just too tedious. And if it's tedious on the client, can you imagine the mediator, right?
Yeah, I actually think I see people tired at 90 minutes. So if they want to go longer, like, we'll talk about it in advance. But I mean, if people don't tell me, I'll say, let's start with 90 minutes and we'll, you know, and at our second or third meeting, if you want to go longer, we can. But I don't want people to be making decisions or considering things when they're mentally, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
90 minutes is actually, like, for me, like you said, I also am doing it for me. You know, 90 minutes is a time period where I can give to everyone my all. If it's 2.5 hours, I'm going to be looking like, oh my God, I have another hour, 45 minutes. Like, it's kind of like it's a long time when you're doing 2 or 3 of these a day.
Right. And I have heard horror stories, one of them being an 8-hour mediation, and absolutely nothing got done. So I don't know what the mediation was set up for because they all took 7 banker boxes. One side took their 7 and the other side took their 7, and they went through those banker boxes trying to find proof of stuff. So I just didn't understand the purpose. And at the end of that mediation, I understand that the mediator decided that he should become the arbiter. So
Oh,
he
really?
took them on as an arbiter, and then he went for like 7 months. And during that 7 months, never, ever, he took one of them to lunch several times, but could never, ever, and wouldn't make any decisions on his own. So then I came in and I actually helped them find, I'm going to lose the term, a receiver, so that the
Oh,
receiver could take over the businesses that were involved so that they could preserve what was left over.
yeah, I'm not a fan of. I don't make like, some people come to me and they'll be like, hey, we have a, our kid, this is the most common situation that's comes up in, like, the parents, they're divorced. It's 2, 3, 4, 5 years after the initial divorce. And one of them, they used to live pretty close. Now I'm in San Diego. So when you're like 12 miles away, that's like 45 minutes because of the traffic. So now one of the parents is like, a 40-minute drive from the school. And they're like, hey, I want the kids to come to the school next to my house. And those are tough cases. And I get this all the time. We're like, hey, can we present to you each of our arguments about why we individually think that this school is better or that school is better, and then you just make the decision and it's binding. And I don't do it at all, but it's not my forte. It's not what I'm good at.
Yeah. So in my co-parenting aspect, that's when I sit them down and I go, so what's best for the children? Not what's best for you. What's best for the children? Where are their friends? What is it going to be for them to start school over in another school? Let's think about the kids and their problem, not your problem.
Yeah, it's just so hard, like with a recent case, there was one of the parents really believed in diversity, and they had all these statistics to show how diverse their school that they preferred was. And it turned out, though, and I'm not trying to get racial or anything, but that the other parent's school had a greater diversity. It was like 45% Asian. And they were like, but that's more diversity than yours. And she was like, well, that's not the right type of diversity. It's like I'm not here to make a decision on who diversity or what consists of, but what I think is best for kids typically is like waking up at the same time in each parent's house, going to bed at the same time, having as close to the same drive time as possible. I mean, these are things I think, if they're waking up at 5:15 a.m. at one parent's house to get to school, and they're waking up at 7:25 at the other. I mean, those are discrepancies that are problematic.
Right. Yeah. And I work with that. That's some of what I try to help my clients. And I can work with both in the co-parenting aspect, but most of the time I'm working with one to try and find a solution with the other.
Yeah. That's what you do. You do God's work.
Well, I think you do God's work. So there we go. You'll be the right hand. I'll be the left hand.
Yeah.
So Scott, I know that you're in California, so can you work with people outside of California, or do you just work with California?
I pretty much work in California. I mean, I guess theoretically I wouldn't be able to advise people on the law outside of California, but yeah, I'm in California and I do California cases.
Okay. So do you meet in person or can they meet with you virtually?
Virtually, by phone, virtually, Zoom, Google Meet, or in my office in San Diego. So it's whatever works best for them. But I'd say about 60% of my cases right now are virtual. So it's obvious. I've been doing Zoom mediation since 2018, so it was a big part of my practice, kind of predating the COVID and everything.
COVID stuff, yeah.
Now, you can work all over the country, correct?
Yes, I can work in fact, I'm working in Africa and England and Canada now.
Wow.
So
amazing.
As long as they can speak English. And in some cases, I know a little bit more. Like I can tell you, England's law is very much like Colorado's law, divorce law. So almost identical in how they handle things. So that was really simple because I came from Colorado and I knew more originally about the Colorado law. And then I learned a lot about Massachusetts law. And then I learned a lot about Wisconsin. So I just spent time with attorneys through all of these. And when I get close to an attorney, I try to dig into the law so I know a little bit more. It just helps my clients more.
England is a fault divorce country, right? Like you could still.
It isn't anymore, and that changed. It changed 2 years ago. It changed literally. I started picking up my clients just like days after that hit and changed.
You can see I'm not up to date on those things.
Well, it's kind of interesting because the law, we come into the United States from their law, and so a lot of their law came over with us, and that's how come you as an attorney know a little bit about that, because it came in with their law.
Yeah. I'm glad that change. I think that is a positive change for most people, is not having to.
I think so too. I don't like the fact that, like Texas, I would not suggest anybody move to Texas with what they're wanting to do. And I loved Texas up until this point because I work in the high conflict, that's dangerous for my clients. That's life threatening in that situation.
It is.
Yeah.
It just adds another layer.
Yep. Yep. So as we get ready to close this out, how can people find you?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll put some of my information in
In the show notes.
the show notes. But yeah, I mean, so my nickname is Chief Peacekeeper Scott Levin. I'm at Scott Levin Mediation at Gmail. I know that's very professional. But if you search Scott Levin, Chief Peacekeeper, I did a divorce mediation back in, I think it was like 2012, for a couple that where one of them was on the tribal council at a Native
Wow.
American tribe here in San Diego County. So that's kind of like the government of this Native American tribe. And we worked through the settlement. They came into my office to sign. And the woman looks at me after she signed and she said, "You're my chief peacekeeper." I said, "Oh, can I steal that from you?"
Like that.
So with her permission, that's where that came from. So, but yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. I love that. So just a little bit about me for our viewers. I'm a certified divorce coach, meaning that I'm trained in the divorce and its complexities. I specialize in high conflict divorce, especially that from toxic partners, toxic narcissistic partners. My late husband, my dad, and myself all experienced abuse. So not only do I know from my knowledge and my training, I also know firsthand what my clients go through. I can be contacted through my email at Coach Tina Lynn, that's CoachTinaLynnn @gmail.com. And my website is Divorce Coach Specialist. You can also find me on social media on Facebook under Tina Lynn Huggins, that's Huggins, on LinkedIn under Tina Huggins, on Instagram under Divorce Coach Tina Lynn, and on TikTok under Divorce Tina. So, Scott, do you have any advice that you would like to offer as we close out today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, a vast majority of your listeners today, just by, the statistics, can resolve a separation process outside of court. And if you try, you will find that you will succeed. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be on the same page. It doesn't mean that you have to want to be in the same virtual or physical space. It just means that you have to want to protect your own best interests. You want to protect your money. You want to protect your kids. You want to protect your financial future. And the bottom line is, nobody feels better about their personal situation until the legal process is done.
Amen.
You feel stuck until you get the legal process over. So every month, every year that you extend that and you're not getting past that is 1 month or 1 year longer before you're really going to start your recovery, which is, really, as humans, we should want to live our best lives. And the legal process has to be finished to do that.
Yes. And mediation should be, I mean, in most states, that's kind of what they tell you have to go through before you can go through a litigation process anyways. But it should be what you want to head for, because that is the only time that you have your own say-so. Once you get in front of a judge, you don't have any say-so. That judge is in control of you, your lives, your kids' lives, your money, everything.
Yeah. And then when you prepare for like 5 months for your big hearing, and then the morning of, one of the lawyers emails the judge and says, "Hey, judge, I need to extend this. I'm sick." And all of a sudden the next hearing date is 5.5 months down the road. How's that going to make you feel? You're going to feel stuck.
Right.
By the way, California is not one of those states, and it never will be. They do not require mediation at all. You can engage in a court contested case. So, unfortunately, Yeah.
That's sad, sad. So, well, I appreciate you, and to our viewers, because I work in a high conflict abuse situation. If you are in an abusive situation here and now, call 911. If you're in the UK, call 999. Get the police there. Press charges. Keep those charges. Don't drop those charges. That is your key out of that relationship. That is a protection that you need to keep in place. If you have been involved and or know somebody involved in domestic violence, please call a domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. That number again is 800-799-7233. So I ask that all of you please like, comment, and share this information from Scott, because it will help other people. So again, Scott, thank you so much for being with me here today and sharing all your knowledge and your expertise.
It's been a pleasure to get to know you.
Thanks so much. And thank you, everybody.